Hey everyone, it's Joe and Isaias here from the Automator. And during today's hero call, we were working through a new script we released on error monitoring and helping you feed it back to AI. And I realized Irfan and I had been working on one aspect that we didn't finish. And so I said, Isaias, hey, let's wrap it up during the call. Well, turns out the issue is really
Far more
complicated.
complicated,
Yeah.
which
So
is as
Isaias
usual.
got
Like,
working on it. Isaias, go ahead and go through the what
yeah,
we figured out.
it's so funny. It's just like you jinxed it. It's like, oh, it might be a simple issue. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Well,
No, but basically, what happens is, here's the main idea of the tool. We decided to use shell hooks, Windows wing hooks from the shell, right? And when we do this, we tell the operating system, okay, as soon as a given window is created that I'm going to look for later, go ahead and call this method as fast as possible.
crazy fast. Yeah.
And that's basically something. Let me just explain that part really quickly. Remember, you're the user here, right? Now, by this time, you're looking at a window that the operating system created. But to do that, the operating system has to manage the windows. And just right above that, there's something called a wing hook. And actually, just keep in mind, I'm oversimplifying this, and there's a lot of steps in between. But basically, what happens is by the time you look at a window here, Windows had to manage that window. And probably before managing it, there was a window hook somewhere. And that's right before the OS is processing instructions for Windows, okay? Window instructions, all right?
And let me add to this slightly here, because down at I don't know if it's on 4 or 5, when you're using AutoHotKey with a set timer, oh, I'll just go watch for that window, right?
You're looking at it in here on this level, on level
okay,
5, right?
but you're also saying, well, how often do I want to search for it, right? And when you do it, I wish we had like different cars here, because you'd see the Ferrari versus the Toyota Echo, right? The Kia. And the
Right.
Kia is AutoHotkey speed, right? It does it very slow, but when you're running things at the built-in OS, the ShellHook level stuff,
Right.
lightning
Yeah.
fast. It's so much
Well,
faster.
of course, you're skipping a few things right here. So that's
Fair
the
enough.
top.
But I'm just
So
talking about the actual
basically,
execution anyway. Like it's running
right.
C level code, right? So it's faster.
All right. So basically, just this is a very high level overview. The operating system is going to process some windows. Before it processes them fully, it notifies a few people. That's what the wing hook really is. It notifications to different parts of the system. And after it notifies the relevant parties, it goes ahead and does some other management. And that's important to what I'm going to show later. Because during this management, something happens that it's what was causing the error. Then the operating system displays the window, and that's when you go ahead and look at it. Notice that AutoHotKey lives here. HK lives right here. Any script you do, win activate, win close, with this, lives on the user space, and everything you do is after the operating system has done anything it has to do with it. So that little overview is needed, because here's the problem. So Joe say, oh, this might be a very simple thing. Let's go ahead and look at it. Well, our class that gets called automatically is the capture AHK window. That's what we told, I think, here. Yeah, capture AHK window is what it tells the Windows hook. Hey, whenever a window is created, go ahead and give us a notify here on capture AHK window, and I'm going to handle it from there. So I get a notification here. In here, we do a few things. We confirm that we're getting an error and so on. And when we find an error, then we go ahead and do this part. This is where Joe was like, oh, that's simple. At that point, let's go ahead and activate the Chrome window. So after we click here, after we click to dismiss the error, let's go ahead and activate a window-defined app, which is in part of our settings. As soon as I started, we started with the obvious stuff. The obvious stuff is, hey, let's use wing activate. And I think that's what Irfan tried first. So he said, okay, let's wing activate whatever it was. And in this case, we're going to stick with Chrome, because that was what it was, chrome.exe, right? So that's what he was trying to do. Fair enough, simple. And actually, if you use any AutoHotKey script that does Windows Win Activate Chrome, everything works fine. In his case, nothing worked fine. It was like, it is not activating. Then he switched to something else. He switched to Win Restore and then Win Maximize. And then it was worse because then we got a black window somewhere that it was covering the whole thing. And Joe was like, okay, let's give this to Isaias. Let's see if he knows. I look at it. I go like, this should work. I tried it. Nothing works. I see the box. And then I start realizing, hold on, we are in a hook context. So we are too early. By the time I'm in the hook, I don't have information about certain windows. And that's basically why I had to give this little introduction, because I was in a spot here. That's what I realized. Oh God, we're in the context of a win-hook. Probably by this time, the Windows doesn't have the right context, and less AutoHotKey that is down here. Like AutoHotKey has nothing to do with that, right? So I started going through that idea, and then I was like, okay, so how about we set a timer to defer the action? That means we're going to activate the window, Win Activate, bind at that time for whatever, for Chrome here, right? And I said, let's have it after 800 milliseconds to let the system deal with everything. By the time this timer gets launched, then Chrome must be managed and must be shown. And it seems to be that I was on the right track, but during the hero call, it was still not working. And I was like, okay, I'm going to ask AI. Let me see what happened, because I know that I'm on the right track. I just don't know why it's not working. This is where AI came up with something. This is where I think AI shines. I hadn't looked at the full script. There's there's enough coding here, right? It's about 200, 500 lines. Joe just told me, let's look at it. I just went for it. Like I didn't really read the whole thing. So I missed a very key step. And Joe told me, hey, what about the hidden windows and stuff? And I was like, we probably are capturing the wrong window. And he was right. Like it is true, but I didn't notice right at the beginning of the script, there is a detect hidden windows true here. But it doesn't matter. As I fed everything to AI right away saw it. Like I didn't have to spend time looking for it or figuring it out. AI noticed where it was, and it just told me, hey, look, you're on the right track. Your assumption is correct. So instead of that, let's do this. It actually kept my timer idea. So it is still what I was thinking was right. But it said, let's do this instead. Let's remove some assumptions. And that's where everything then was clear for me. Okay, yes, here is the magic done. This function called find main window by exe removes some assumptions that we were making by mistake. And the first assumption that it removes is, hey, let's disable the detect hidden windows just by making sure that we're not detecting windows that are not supposed to be detected. The black box that we were looking at was one of such windows. So Chrome has a bunch of, so here, Chrome has a bunch of little spawn threads and sub processes. And some of them don't have windows, like most of them don't. But the main process, even though it has a main window that we can bring to the front, it might have a few other windows that are not the main one. And one of them might be a utility window or something that we don't care about, right? So at that point, if you capture the wrong window when you tell it to activate, then you're going to be activating something that you didn't mean to activate. That's what this particular function deals with. It is all AI. It just did part of what we would have done, which is just looping through all the windows that particular executable has. But here's the interesting part. It came up with this function, the is window visible. I'm not very experienced in C++, so I didn't know that there was a function that you could do for that. And if it is not visible, it would ignore it. Great. Then it came up with a second thing, which is if the window is a tool window, and if you don't know what those are, it's just like when you create a window like main here, you can set it up to be a plus tool window here, and if I show it with some width and height, you will notice that it doesn't have the minimize, maximize, and stuff. And it also doesn't show up in the taskbar. So it's a special type of window. And yeah, how do you know if that is a type of window? Well, this is the way how you know. You get the styles, and then you check that style for a given style, which is the tool window style. And if it has it, then it is also ignoring it too. We don't care. And this is the one that I was like, okay, I would have never thought of that one. You know, like I don't even know what this is. So DWM cloaked is a very specific type of invisibility that is done by the desktop window manager. And I told Joe, like, I know this from a different context. I deal with Linux and I work with Linux. And in there, we have a lot of window managers. You can choose your own. And I understand a little bit more how they work. But I didn't know that Windows has one. I did know one day I saw it like dwm.exe, and then once I dealt with them in Linux, then I realized, oh, Windows has one of those too. I didn't know. It's not that I didn't know. I just didn't. It was not like on the top of my head. Like, oh yeah, they should have one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was like, yeah, they should have one, of course. Like, how do I have Windows instead, right? So now that I know that this desktop window manager is the one that is managing how the windows are displayed, how they're moved, which one is overlapped, and some other information. One of the things that I didn't know is that they do have a cloaked sort of setting that certain windows could be invisible, even if they are supposedly visible to the API.
I don't want to derail you, but I know you and I both have tried before to get the Z level of Windows. Would that be a possible thing?
Wow, that's a great question. Again, I don't consider myself a programmer, so that's I don't have that answer.
Video,
but I would probably assume that at some point in the DWM app API, there might be something that tells you what the Z level of a window should be, right? But in any case, AI came up with this, and it determines whether something is cloaked or not. It is a little bit more complex than just that. So, okay, and if it is cloaked, then we ignore it too. And then by the end, if I had ignored enough windows, I should end up with one that is actually visible, that is not a tool window, and that it is not cloaked by the Windows desktop window manager too. So by that time, when I get that, I'm probably dealing with the main window from a given program. And at that point, this function once tries to get that window, then it tries all the other stuff, the normal stuff, the window activate, the win restore, you know, all of those things. And if all of that fail, then it tried some more advanced stuff of using some low-level APIs to try to force a window into the foreground by going through the process IDs, the threads, and through those threads going through that particular window, and then set the foreground window with this function. So again, very interesting stuff. And I was telling Joe, when I pasted the code, because this is definitely AI code, when I pasted it, it worked on the first try. Well, I had to remove a backslash, but then it worked on the first try. It was the only error that it had to do with something that in other languages is really common, is that when you're passing a path like that, that backslash should be escaped. So it put it twice. In AutoHotKey, that's not valid. But that was the only error, and it actually worked right away. As soon as I did that, now Chrome gets activated. And this is the problem. It was whether it is minimized or not, because our problem was that when the window was minimized, some things were behaving kind of weirdly. But now that's not the case. If I run my tool, if I have it running, and I, by mistake, I just misspelled something. I just do this. I get an error. It goes ahead and activates my Chrome window. No problem. Basically, by deferring the action until the operating system had dealt with it. Because, and this is the interesting part that I didn't mention to you, Joe, it was, if you set the active window here in the win hook, the Windows operating system might replace what you just did, because during its management, it determines that that window should have been minimized. So the operating system knows that the window is minimized. You in the hook try to activate it, but the operating system overwrites that and says, oh, that window was minimized last time, so it's minimized, because whatever you did in the hook did not update the Windows management system and told it that you activated the window. So that's why we defer it. We say, okay, we do our action, and now let's wait until the operating system deals with all that. And once it deals with that, then we, at the user level, pick up again and win activated. But now the operating system is not going to override what I just did. That's basically what was going on. That's the way how I would kind of like explain it. We're circumventing we're waiting for it to finish before we do our activation so that it doesn't overwrite our stuff.
And by the way, I was going to mention the Winhook stuff, which we covered, I think, in a different video. The example I recall from in V1, there was a one for using a set timer, and it's for a pop-up window on closing a pop-up window with a set timer, right? The thing was, in the
Yes.
example, the set timer, even if it's like 300 milliseconds, often it's somewhat visible, right? You'd see it flash and it would disappear. But with the Winhook, you don't even see the window. It's gone before you really even blink. Like it's lightning fast, which gets back to
Yes.
why you might take this approach in the first place. What you
Yes.
do now, suddenly you have to elevate your entire game.
Right. You have to understand a little bit more of what is going on. So if, in your example, Joe, if we are in the window hook context and I send a message to close a window, that actually notifies the management of the operating windows that the window is no longer there. So it never reaches the user because the window is closed. When you set the window activate, that doesn't notify for whatever reason this section, and then this overwrites the whole thing. And that's why it was failing. But I cannot explain, because again, this is not my area. I'm just making suppositions here based on experience, of course. But the idea is somehow the window activation is not triggering something here, and this is actually overriding it for some reason. While when you close a window, it doesn't behave the same way. And that's something that I cannot explain. Maybe if I ask AI, it might point me in the right direction. But for now, what we dealt with seems to have been cool. It's good enough. It works. That's what we needed. I will learn about other things when I need to do those, like how I will learn about that when I need it. For now, I can focus on the things that I understand, right?
Awesome. All right. So thanks for watching that video. If you learned something, like the video, it really helps us out. Consider this came up. We didn't end up solving the end thing during the hero call, but we were walking through the steps of it. The hero program is a great program. We have 3 hours of calls a week where we live help people in a Telegram group where you can ask questions during the week. But check it out. Have a great day. Cheers.
Bye.